Da 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 da. Now we will bring to the stage the talking about the future of reputation. It is a pleasure to welcome, really this time, Roy, Abby, and Sarah. The next 30 minutes is yours. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we're excited to be here today, and from what I understand, I think we're the last thing standing between lunch and all of you, so we'll try to make this pointed and as quick as we possibly can. We're thrilled to share with you our innovation and our journey on developing a reputation measurement framework that shows how reputation safeguards and builds real-world outcomes for the business. So, if you're going to be on an innovation journey in anything that you do, you need three things. You're going to need an observation, you're going to need an opportunity, and you're going to need an objective. So our observation was quite simple. The world's changing, and that's brought to life by the fact that more and more people believe companies need to do more to address a variety of issues in society, engage their workforce, and so on. And we're also seeing a rise in activism. People are more likely to speak out or act against or even act for a company based on how they handle those particular concerns. And what we know is that companies have moved to address this. We see a lot more communications and initiatives to show the positive impacts that companies can have on the world today. And what we wanted to do was link this to an opportunity. Because if these companies are already engaging in all these initiatives and already investing in it, there's nothing better for senior stakeholders than when you tell them that we can get more value out of the work that you're already doing. And that is how we can show a connection to all these value-driven efforts to real-world business outcomes. Which then brings us to our objective, which is quite straightforward. Let's imagine a measurement solution that highlights the importance of values-driven efforts. And more importantly, given that communications is really the custodian of a company's reputation and all of these value-driven efforts, imagine a reputation framework that actually showed the importance of a communications function. It all needs to ladder up there. So, we got our principles, but like anything, you need a good story. So, our story for reputation is grounded in two truths. The first one is that reputation is commonly misunderstood. We often hear people think about reputation and they automatically go to customers and they think about their products. And the reality is, reputation is much, much more than just that. And we need to broaden that understanding of reputation. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to show that reputation has two main outcomes. It safeguards the business and it strengthens the business, and together enhances the business operations. And I'll come back to that in more detail a bit later. So, next thing is we're going to show that reputation is all about integrity and character. We're going to bring that to life. And it's already been happening. It's been happening for a long while. But there's good examples of companies like Patagonia that has a sterling reputation, and it's because they put their values into everything that they do. And all other companies, large-scale companies, are already moving in that direction. You're seeing a narrative shift to address that. And if we're going to bring that integrity to life, we need three things in our story. Number one, we need good corporate values. Number two, we need to show impact behaviors. And then number three, we need engaging communications. And that's how we can demonstrate integrity. Now, there's one challenge to any innovation journey in anything that you do. And that's unfortunate, but in order to change things, you need to break the momentum. And with reputation, we identified some key barriers. The first key barrier is that the art and science of branding measurement is far, far older than reputation, which means that many people have already started measuring reputation in a way that is more connected to brand philosophy. That needs to be disconnected. And the second problem is, anytime you're the novel, new idea, or innovative, if people are already doing something and they've already adapted in a certain way, there's an inclination to decline new ways of thinking. So, the reality is, fortune favors the brave. And for the timid, that doesn't really leave much for you. So if you're going to make change, you're going to need a change maker, you're going to need a rainmaker, and you're going to need a dream maker. And I want to introduce you to Sarah Myles, and she'll take you through that journey.
What an intro. What an intro, Roy. Thank you very much. Okay, so in the spirit of the great Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, this is a story all about how McDonald's isn't just flipping burgers, but we're flipping the script on corporate responsibility. And I'm not here to talk to you about our famous fries, and I know that'd be torture right before lunch. I'm here to talk to you about how we're making McDonald's famous for its positive impact on people and planet. This is a story about how the global communications team found its home within the global impact function and how the organization has pivoted its focus to the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profits. And with that, it's a story about how the global communications team has doubled down on reputation and deprioritized consumer-facing campaigns that are designed to drive point of sale. Now, how does the story end, you may ask? Well, it ends with us not only driving business outcomes, but making a lasting impact on the world. So let's get into the story. It was November 2020, amidst the global pandemic, and McDonald's had launched a new growth strategy called Accelerating the Arches, which is what you'll see right here on this page. And there's 3 key components of this strategy, one being maximizing our marketing, the other being committing to our core menu items, and the third being doubling down on our 4Ds, which was actually 3Ds, until we added development this last year. But the key component, and almost equally as importantly about this plan, is that we also announced a new purpose. And that purpose was to feed and foster communities. And the catalyst of this change was not only the pandemic, but it was shifting stakeholder perceptions, as my friend Roy was just speaking to earlier today. And so with that, McDonald's didn't see an opportunity. They saw a responsibility to use its scale for good. And with that, Global Impact was formed. And so the unique thing about the Global Impact team is that communication sits among many of the other teams, being security and intelligence, public policy and government relations, philanthropy, which also includes our RMHC chapter, sustainability and social impact, and lastly, diversity. And with that Global Impact team, we're on a mission grounded in 4 strategic pillars, first being focused on food quality and sourcing, the next being our planet and the environment, the other is our people, and then lastly, serving communities in times of need. So you may be wondering, how does this connect to measurement? Sarah, what are you talking about? So I'm going to take you a little bit fast forward through time. And so I started at McDonald's in May 2021. My original role was to create a U.S. measurement team, sitting squarely in the center of the communications function. The roles with that team were to focus on performance measurement, so think about your traditional campaign measurement, scorecards, etc. I think the word scorecard was about 15, maybe 20 times within the job description. It also had focused on issues and trends, so thinking about your typical tracking and also polling, etc. But one thing that happened was within about 6 short months, I found my role had changed, not completely, but have taken on a much bigger responsibility, and that being leading reputation insights. And the path to get there, we were uncovering all the different tools and resources that were at our fingertips, just being a brand new team within the McDonald's system, and also one that they hadn't had prior before. And in our audit, we discovered that the tools that existed at McDonald's were not equipped to drive the changes we were looking to make. And with that, we found that They shed light on McDonald's brand health, but not McDonald's reputational health. They focus on consumer insights, but not stakeholder insights. They focus on dining, menu, and sales strategies, and not people, planet, and business impact strategies. They focus on customer-based campaigns, but not reputation initiatives, our commitments, and the risks that were associated with reputation. And so with that, we set out on a mission to start what we call GRIT, and there's very much a pun intended there, which is our Global Reputation and Impact Tracker program. And so our strategy for increasing buy-in was twofold. So we essentially emphasized the value, so showing how reputation connects to our intended business outcomes. And we also had to go on a learning journey and helping our colleagues understand the differences between reputation, brand, and also the gap that existed within the organization. And I'll tell you what, getting that buy-in wasn't as hard as we had imagined. And so with that, we set out on that mission to design that program, and our goals were essentially to define what reputational success looks like at McDonald's. We also wanted to, of course, assess the health of McDonald's reputation. We wanted to provide forward-looking insights for planning, and we wanted to inform campaign prioritization, initiative prioritization, and help the teams with where they should focus their time. But underneath every good measurement and research and insights program lies a measurement framework. And this was kind of the trickiest part, I would say, of our journey, especially when it came to stakeholder alignment. And so with the measurement framework, we considered those that were off the shelf or pre-built, but also custom options. And we kind of grounded the decision-making strategy in 6 core criterias. The framework needed to be connected, and it would lead to, if we move the needle on these measures, it would lead to progress against our intended business outcomes. We needed our framework to be clear, clearly connecting the dots between the day-to-day work the teams were doing to these larger, loftier goals. We also needed the framework to be a composite because, as we all know, I hope in this room, reputation is not one-dimensional. It must be multi-dimensional, considering many factors when it comes to stakeholder perceptions. It needed to be comprehensive, and for us that included, it had to be applicable to different markets, different audiences, and applied to so many different reputation-building campaigns that are happening quarterly across the world. It had to be comparative, so thinking about where we stand against not only our own QSR competitive set, where we stand against other companies that are movers and shakers in this space. And lastly, it had to be characteristic, so very clearly creating that separation between reputation and brand. And so with that, we decided to go with a custom approach at McDonald's. And I think the core part of that, in addition to all of the things that are on this screen here, is we had to also think through our stakeholder ecosystem. And figuring out from a prioritization perspective, right? What are the markets we're onboarding first? And making sure that leadership was aligned with that criteria. But then as we know with reputation, there's many stakeholders that we should be considering in the mix. And so for us, we looked at and prioritized which audiences we thought were the most important to understand what issues each of them are facing. And then the last key component of that was, of course, finding a research partner. And so with that, Roy and team had a shared philosophy on reputation and also we're doing incredible, innovative thought leadership in the space.
Thanks, Sarah. I'll take this down a bit more technical and bring you through the actual reputation measurement approach, and more importantly, show to you all that It's important to bring the stakeholders along the journey. That's what's going to build adoption. And where we always start in any conversation with organizations about why reputation matters is obviously what they're all trying to achieve. And it's very easy for anyone to see that reputation creates business longevity. Now, what they typically don't always connect to, though, is that there's technically two outcomes, strengthening and safeguarding, as I mentioned earlier at the top of this. When we look at that, strengthening will make your organization more welcomed. Policymakers want to work with you. People want to work at your company. It's easier to get your foot in the door and keep it in the door and continue to expand. And on the other side is safeguarding, crisis prevention, which we always know about, but unfortunately for most companies don't think about until the crisis occurs. So what we do is we bring that to life. And again, on the strengthening side, more often than not, a lot of stakeholders just go straight to premium. How much does this affect our ability to charge a premium? But there's more to that, and there's a lot more on engaged workforce, and the list actually goes on. We've shortened it here for the presentation. What they tend to forget is the absolute intangible value of reputation. And there's a lot of other frameworks that want to put a number on what reputation's worth. And the reality is, if you're facing a crisis, it's worth the entire business, because it can literally end the entire game. And that really helps when you have credibility, which has been well established by other presentations today. Now, I won't go through this and read the whole slide to you. There are some definitions here of what brand is and what reputation is. If y'all can walk out of here in the room, there's a real short way of thinking about it. Brand is about winning. Reputation is about how you won. And that's the core way to think about it. When you think about that, it really brings it to life when you can show this to stakeholders, senior management, and you can show them that reputation is much more about integrity. It must serve multiple stakeholders. There are different expectations that different stakeholders have. And then more importantly, at the very bottom right there, reputation through communications is all about that positive impact on people in society. It's about bringing everything that we bring to bear on all of our value-driven communications and creating value. This is where reputation lives. Now, if you've told folks that reputation is different than brand, and they're buying into it, the next conclusion is you can't measure them with the same things. So you have to have a different way of thinking about measuring reputation. I will bury the lead, and I will tell you all that those items there in pink and red, values, admire, and trust to do the right thing, are better indicators of reputation measurement. And I'll show you how. We want to make sure that reputation is connected to all of those tactics and initiatives and values-driven efforts. So as you can see here with diversity, equity, and inclusion, we see quite a few of the red ones making their way up to the top. And as we go across, you can see supporting local communities, sustainability, treating the employees well, supporting good causes, and taking a stand on political and social issues. What this means is that when people think about all the wonderful positive things that an organization can do, and you're asking them how to rate the company, if you're asking them if they admire the company, you're more likely to connect to those positive outcomes of reputation, the communications focus points. If you're looking at trust and respect, probably not as sharp of a way of measuring that. So what we figured out was that unlocking reputation is about unlocking integrity, and more importantly, it's just as much important, is minimizing ability measurements in your reputation measurement program. So this led us to our proprietary measurement, resilience, which combines the three of the measurements I just presented to you a minute ago. But it will not be a successful measurement approach if it doesn't give all those executives and senior leaders what they're after, those outcomes. So we had to compare them, and we had to make sure that the model could stand up against other legacy approaches and the relationship with those outcomes. And what we found from our research was that resilience was able to predict those reputation outcomes more effectively. In fact, 23% more effective at predicting that outcome. So now we've connected it to initiatives and perceptions of social impact. We've also connected it to outcomes. And this all comes together neatly with a strategic framework. And remember, a good strategy has to bring up good tactics with it, okay? So we all saw, you just saw a minute ago, resilience is much more effective at predicting those outcomes. Fantastic. And It's also good at connecting to all of our tactical initiatives and policies. You can see there diversity and inclusion, and the list goes on. And every industry, every company, they're going to have different types of tactics and policies, different challenges. And one of the beautiful things about National Research Group's framework to measuring reputation is it's fully customizable, and it actually is designed to look at all the strategy that Sarah was just showing you and make sure that it is tying that together neatly by exploring corporate values, impact behaviors, and engaging communications. Well, unfortunately, the brightest ideas, the smartest designs, the best frameworks, everything you can throw at it, right? It all fails if you bring it out and then it doesn't get adopted, okay? So one of the most important parts to finish this innovation journey is you need somebody who's gonna integrate it and gonna get it adapted to your stakeholders. You need somebody with a deft hand, right? They can educate people, they can be a diplomat, but sometimes I need to be an enforcer. So it's a very skilled person that can do that, and I'll introduce to you Abby Scott.
Thank you, Roy. Okay, so this is when these two right here said, who do we throw into the lion's den to make this all work? And terrifyingly enough, in that moment, it was me. So what was next was education, adoption, awareness. How do we get people to understand what it is that we're doing and what we want them to do with it? So there are a few steps that we really stuck to. Number one is, who are our primary users and what are our objectives? We talk a lot about reputation outcomes for a business, but what are our reputation outcomes for the primary users of this research? We can develop reports and show really cool frameworks, but if no one knows how to use it, it's pretty pointless. So next was stakeholder mapping. It's a large stakeholder ecosystem at McDonald's, and so again, we went back to number one and thinking about who are the primary users, and in this case, it's Global Impact, the team which we sit on as part of communications, but also encompasses lots of other stakeholders that Sarah kind of talked about, but that's our global teams. We call those our centers of excellence. They sit at the center at headquarters. After that, we have our market teams. So we have different teams who are executing all of these things at the top within each of our markets and bringing it to life. With this research, doing it at scale, we chose 10 of our largest markets to start with. We have other countries buying in as we go, which is really exciting to see. But this is sort of where we started. We also have other internal partners, so our sort of secondary users of this research. This is really relevant for other people as well, and we sort of want our global impact team to be sort of the facilitators and use this research to support other efforts like marketing, supply chain, people, other insights functions. And so from there, we also have external stakeholders. So we work with lots of different agency partners, from communications to marketing to digital media, different agencies who also kind of need to be on the same page and on the same journey with us and striving towards the same things. So it's about mapping these things out. And then, driving that awareness and finding ways to show the application of the research of the data with each of these groups. So kind of curating our approach for each group. And then my transparently least favorite part, accepting feedback. So we went through this whole alignment journey and we got all of our leaders on board with what we had put together and we felt really confident, but as you know, with a large stakeholder group like this, there will always be more feedback, more thoughts, more opinions, more to consider. And so for us, it was really grounding ourselves in that step number one. We wanted to hear the feedback, and in some instances, it was really good pushes that laddered up to meeting those objectives. But in other instances, we had to take an approach of, we hear you, thank you, we're moving on. That's hard, but yeah. So now I'm going to talk to you about some examples of how the data has come to life. So we share these reports with our teams, and we give them all of this information, but we also support in facilitating the insights to adoption. So a couple of examples. Number one, Ronald McDonald House Charities. Sarah mentioned RMHC earlier. This is our philanthropic partner at McDonald's. It's a partner we've been with for nearly 50 years now. And so it's sort of a legacy relationship, and a lot of people are aware of the partnership we have with RMHC. And so what we found through the research we were doing is that the support we give and the work we do with Ronald McDonald House is the number one reason our internal stakeholders, our internal audiences say that they're proud to work for McDonald's. So that was a big unlock for us in thinking about how does the work that we do drive those tangible business outcomes, so things like retention. But there's also external initiatives we're executing. So you may have heard of something called McHappy Day, or when you're ordering at McDonald's, there's an option to round up for RMHC, round up your purchase to benefit the philanthropy. These are initiatives that through our research we found were highly effective, meaning that they had great awareness, but also strong impact on reputation or perceptions of McDonald's when we did execute these things. So with this insight, we found that, yes, we should continue to prioritize this work that we're doing and really keep it on our roadmap for the next several years, keep hitting home this partnership. Another one that we found to be highly effective is a campaign called 1 in 8. Cool thing about this one is that it's grounded in a data insight that 1 in 8 Americans have worked at McDonald's. And so the purpose of this insight in this campaign was driving awareness of sort of the community that working at McDonald's creates. You have this whole community behind you, and also just the benefits and skill sets that you can develop in working at a restaurant like McDonald's. And so this is a campaign that, again, really effective. High awareness, strong impact on reputation. This is happening and being executed in the US, but we're now thinking about how to further this and implement it in other. Testing. Okay, I'm back. Obviously, the insight is slightly different from country to country, but how do we bring this to life globally? Every 2 years, we have a convention called Worldwide, and this is where we convene our system. So we bring together franchisees or the restaurant owners, we bring together our partners, our suppliers, we bring together corporate employees. And it's a time for internal system audiences to connect, but also hear from leadership, hear a consistent message. What are we prioritizing as a business? What's working? And sort of where are we focusing moving forward? So this was an interesting one because we were able to deploy some surveys pre and post the convention. What we wanted to understand was, were we conveying the right messages? Were they resonating? How was overall satisfaction of the event? Were people feeling like we gave them the opportunities to connect? Did we meet our goals, our objectives? And so we then, of course, get to use that data to inform other convenings, things like town halls or just larger meetings, but also worldwide in 2026 and beyond. How do we use these insights to improve? What worked, what didn't? Our insights are global in nature, but we have to be very aware of different nuances from market to market. So one of the learnings that we've used here is we know that policy around reusable packaging is much more advanced in European markets. And our European markets are executing initiatives in restaurants to demonstrate how McDonald's is improving with its packaging. We're not quite there in the US. It's not something that is, on our policy agenda today, right now, but we know it'll get there and we know it's important. So we use these learnings of what types of initiatives worked in our European markets that we can leverage moving forward. And of course, expecting the unexpected. So a lot of what I talked about is how we've proactively used these insights around our initiatives that we're executing, but we also need to be prepared for risk. And what we've done, we've used data in a lot of different ways, but I think one of the most compelling that our teams kind of come back to us with time after time is we execute flash polling so that we can understand how big is an issue. I think we've all experienced that moment where an issue pops and within the bubble of your organization, it feels huge and everyone's freaking out and looking at us like, what do we do? So what we can do is deploy flash polls to understand consumer awareness how aware are folks really? Like, is this as big of an issue as it feels like in our walls? And then also, what perceptions do people have of McDonald's involvement, McDonald's response? We can test messages. Are people resonating with X or Y more? And just inform future strategies, and also just be more prepared in issues for the future. I'll pass it back to Roy.
I've got exactly 1 minute for this, so what I'm going to do is build this all out. So if you all want to take a photo, we're also going to cut questions, so you can always find us over lunch, so we can always do that. But just to recap, close this whole thing down for you all, make sure any reputation measurement that you do is connected to the strategy of the business. Make sure that it is contributing and uplifting your impact teams. Make sure that people understand what exactly reputation is. Make sure your measurements are based on integrity. And in closing, also make sure that it can inform the tactics and communications, everything that Abby just told you about. That's when you're going to drive the most value in your business. Thank you all for coming out today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Worth waiting for, right? Another round of applause for this panel. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you.